The emergency room at St. Mary's Hospital was alive with focused chaos as 29-year-old Sarah Mitchell wrapped up her 12-hour shift, fatigue pressing down on her. As a trauma unit nurse, Sarah had devoted herself to helping others, but the intense work schedule and modest pay made it difficult to take care of her own needs, let alone the growing medical bills of her aging mother. In order to make ends meet and eventually move her mother to a better assisted living facility, Sarah had been taking on double shifts whenever possible. As Sarah prepared to leave for her small apartment, the hospital's emergency alarm blared, signaling an incoming trauma patient who needed an immediate blood transfusion. Dr. Martinez rushed past Sarah toward the trauma bay. "Sarah, we need you to stay. The victim of a severe car accident is losing massive blood, and we are dangerously low on his blood type." Sarah glanced at the clock, aware that she had promised to visit her mother that evening, but the urgency in Dr. Martinez's voice made the decision for her. "What blood type do we need?" "AB negative, a rare blood type that could also be used for plasma donation. It's critical, and our blood supply is almost depleted." "I may be negative," Sarah said without hesitation. "How much do you need?" Dr. Martinez looked at her, clearly surprised but relieved. "Sarah, you just worked a 12-hour shift. Donating blood right now might not be wise," he cautioned. Sarah, however, was resolute. "If someone's life is at stake and I can help, that's what we do," she responded firmly. "Besides, I'm healthy and I can manage." 20 minutes later, Sarah was sitting in the blood donation chair, watching her blood flow through the tube. While she felt drained from both the fatigue and the donation, there was a deep sense of satisfaction knowing that her blood could help save a life. The medical team informed her that the patient was a 34-year-old man involved in a serious car accident. He had lost consciousness and required emergency surgery, but thanks to Sarah's blood, his condition had stabilized enough for the surgeons to perform the operation. By the time Sarah had recovered from her donation and completed the paperwork, the patient had been moved to surgery and then to the intensive care unit. She went home that night, content with the knowledge that her actions had saved someone's life, which felt like enough compensation for her sacrifice. 3 weeks later, as Sarah was working her usual morning shift, the unit secretary approached with a confused look on her face. "Sarah, there's a man here who specifically asked to speak with you. He says it's important, but he's neither a patient nor a family member." Intrigued, Sarah glanced up from her patient charts. In the family waiting area, she spotted a man in an expensive navy suit, appearing to be in his mid-30s. He had dark hair and was standing next to a young girl, around 5 years old, holding a small bouquet of flowers. "Are you Sarah Mitchell?" the man asked as she walked over, his voice a mix of nervousness and gratitude. "Yes, I am," Sarah replied. "How can I help you?" The man extended his hand. "My name is David Harrison and this is my daughter, Emma. 3 weeks ago, you saved my life by donating your blood during my emergency surgery." Sarah's heart skipped a beat as she realized that she was meeting the patient she had helped save. "Mr. Harrison, I'm so glad to see you're doing well," Sarah said, surprised and relieved. "How are you feeling?" David's eyes welled with emotion. "I'm completely recovered, thanks to you. The doctors told me that without your blood, I might not have survived the surgery. You gave me the chance to return home to my daughter." Emma, the little girl, stepped forward and handed Sarah the bouquet. "These are for you, Miss Sarah. Daddy says you're the reason he's still here to take care of me." Sarah knelt to Emma's level and accepted the flowers, her heart swelling with warmth. "Thank you, Emma. These are beautiful. I'm just glad your daddy is okay." David looked at Sarah with a look of deep gratitude. "Sarah, I hope this doesn't sound presumptuous, but I've done some research about you since I learned your name. I know you work long hours here, and that you're caring for your mother while struggling financially." Sarah flushed with embarrassment. "Mr. Harrison, I appreciate your concern, but I don't need charity. I was simply doing my job that night." "That's exactly why I want to help," David replied gently. "You went far beyond what was expected of you. You donated your blood after working a 12-hour shift to save a complete stranger. That kind of selflessness is rare, and it deserves to be recognized." David paused, glancing at his daughter, who was watching the conversation closely. "Sarah, I'm the CEO of Harrison Industries. I've been looking for someone trustworthy to manage my household and care for Emma when I need to travel for work. The position offers a substantial salary, full benefits, and housing in a guest cottage on my property." Sarah stared at him, stunned by what she was hearing. "Mr. Harrison, that's incredibly generous, but I don't understand why you would offer this to me." David's face grew serious. "Because you saved my life without expecting anything in return. Because you prioritized someone else's needs when you were exhausted and could have just gone home. That tells me everything I need to know about your character." Emma tugged on her father's jacket. "Daddy, is Miss Sarah going to come live with us and help take care of me?" David smiled at his daughter, and then turned to Sarah. "That would be up to Miss Sarah, Emma, but I hope she considers it." The next week, Sarah visited David's home to discuss the position he was offering. The guest cottage was larger and more comfortable than her apartment, and the salary would allow her to move her mother into the top-tier care facility she had been hoping for. As she spent more time at the house, Sarah realized David was a dedicated single father who was genuinely seeking someone to care for Emma while he handled his business obligations. Emma's mother had passed away when she was young, and David had struggled to balance his demanding career with being a good father. "Sarah," David said one afternoon as they sat in the garden while Emma played nearby, "I want you to know that this offer has nothing to do with feeling indebted because of the blood donation. I've been looking for the right person to help with Emma for months, but I never found anyone I could trust completely." Sarah watched Emma, who was playing with her dolls and speaking to them in a soft, caring voice that showed she was a well-loved and nurtured child. "David, what happened that night in the emergency room wasn't about creating a debt between us," Sarah said. "I would have done the same for anyone." "I know," David replied. "That's exactly why I know you're the right person for this position. You care about people not because of what they can do for you, but because it's who you are." 3 months later, Sarah had settled into her new role as the household manager and Emma's caregiver. She had successfully moved her mother to the best assisted living facility in the city, where she received exceptional care and made new friends. Emma had become the daughter Sarah had never had the chance to have, and their bond grew into something natural and beautiful. Sarah helped with homework, attended school events, and offered the kind of nurturing presence that Emma had missed since her mother's passing. David, too, had realized that Sarah brought more than just professional competence to his home. She brought warmth and stability that made his house feel like a true home once again. One evening, as they sat together watching Emma perform a song she had learned at school, David turned to Sarah with a serious look on his face. "Sarah, I need to tell you something that I should have said months ago." Sarah noticed a change in his tone and looked at him with curiosity. "When I offered you this position, I told myself it was purely professional, a way to repay a debt and solve a practical problem," David explained. "But the truth is, from the moment I met you in that hospital, I was drawn to your kindness, your strength, and your genuineness." Sarah's heart began to race as she realized what David was trying to say. "I've fallen in love with you, Sarah," David said softly. "Not because you saved my life, but because of who you are every single day. The way you care for Emma, the way you treat everyone with respect and kindness, the way you make our house feel like a family." Sarah looked at this man who had entered her life under the most unexpected of circumstances, and she realized that her feelings for him had grown far beyond professional. "Respect, David. I love you too," she replied. "And I love Emma as if she were my own daughter." Emma, who had been listening from across the room, ran over and threw her arms around both of them. "Does this mean Sarah gets to be my real mommy now?" she asked, her voice full of excitement. 2 years later, at their wedding ceremony in the same garden where David had first made the offer to Sarah, the hospital chaplain, who performed the ceremony, spoke about how sometimes our willingness to help others becomes the path to our own blessings. Sarah had given her blood to save David's life, unaware that in doing so, she was also saving her own future. The chaplain said, "Sometimes when we give without expecting anything in return, life gives us back more than we ever imagined possible." As Sarah exchanged vows with David, she reflected on how a single act of kindness had completely transformed her life. The blood she had donated to save David had, in some way, also infused new life into her dreams and hopes for the future. What had begun as a medical necessity had become the foundation of a love story, proving that sometimes the most meaningful donations we make are not the ones that save lives, but the ones that create new beginnings.